that we were spending a lot of weeks on putting together to look forward to giving it to the governor's task force. As you see in the report, there were three things we came up with. One, a couple of things unanimously that we all felt as task force members that should be done. One, that these types of cases, when stand your ground is brought up, should go at least to a grand jury and have both sides able to present to a grand jury. Right now, state attorneys have that ability, but give defendants that ability if they're going to stand your ground. Two, to educate police force as well as the public as to how we feel stand your ground should be used and how it should be investigated, to track these self-defense claims and so we can get an accurate representation of what has been used with stand your ground, to look at the imminent danger requirement within stand your ground. But more importantly, as you see in the second group, we have consensus recommendations. Let me explain. Those consensus recommendations were those things that of the 18 members, more than 12 agreed that we should do. But more importantly, I put with those consensus recommendations some of the dissenting voices. Because as I said weeks ago when we started this task force, that I was looking for facts. I was looking for direction. I did not have a set path, but I wanted to put the best legal minds together to come up with a plan. And that's why I made sure to include the dissenting voices and to let you know that with all of those other recommendations, that there were consensus majority, over 12 of the 18 people thought that we should do those things, but there were significant dissenting voices. And lastly, and I guess the biggest issue, is the repeal aspect. As a group, we decided that a majority felt that repeal was in order. However, it wasn't enough of a majority or large enough of a majority to put it as a straight recommendation. As we move forward through our public hearing, through our debates, through our conference calls, and our constant email debates back and forth and discussing back and forth over these last couple of weeks, we wanted to make sure that we put together an accurate report to give the governor direction, to give the legislature direction, and to give the governor's task force direction. Weeks ago when I stood here, I called for the governor to act immediately. And when the governor didn't act, I decided to act. After looking at the task force that will begin tomorrow, looking at the makeup of the task force and the direction that a lot of you have written about with the task force, my resolve is even stronger now, that the right thing was done to get the best legal minds together in South Florida. That we got the best legal minds, diverse legal minds. We took an adult look at stand your ground, and we had adult discussions, not political, but adult discussions on stand your ground. And I think we're giving good direction to the legislature on what should be done. And I still say what should be done soon. Because as you see in the back of the report, stand your ground has been used way before Trayvon Martin and will be used way after Trayvon Martin. But in order to make sure that we have a just, legal, and safe society, I still believe that the legislature should act soon and make sure we clarify how we should live in a civilized society in Florida. I'll take any questions.
So, Senator Smith, do you think there should be a special session to implement these changes you're suggesting?
Yes, I still think it's a public safety concern. When you see the myriad of cases at the back of the task force report as we've gone, and those are just ones we can find briefly. When you look at every day, and as we had a county court judge come and testify at our task force meeting, that every day this law is being used and misused throughout courtrooms throughout the state of Florida. And I think waiting as more publicity is out there on the Trayvon Martin case, and waiting and having more people misinterpret this law or misuse this law, I think is a public safety concern in the state of Florida. And let me stress, because of the immense publicity in the recent Trayvon Martin case, I think it is a concern that we need to address soon so that we do not have copycat actions throughout the state.
So if there were a special session and you carried a bill on this, would you consider repeal? Would that be part of your bill different than the consensus in the task force?
No, I would not carry a bill to repeal. I would carry a bill to bring most of the other recommendations out. I think you can see in the discussion that there is a lot of things that can be done to the bill that will make it better and send a better message to the public, but not, I don't think there's a consensus on repeal, and I wouldn't want to waste the legislature's time or waste the public's time just talking about repealing. But I think there's a lot of room for amending this bill and making it better.
So what's next? You have these recommendations to go to Governor Scott. Is your task force going to continue to look into this, or these are recommendations for Governor Scott's task force?
These are recommendations for the legislature.
Right.
I intend on going to the governor's task force tomorrow. I've asked for time to speak and present these recommendations to the task force, but that request was denied. So I guess I'll attend and maybe put it on their windshield wipers on their cars, campaign style afterwards tomorrow. But my intention is to give these recommendations to the governor's task force, but also deliver them to the governor as well as President Herodopoulos and Speaker Cannon, and ask them for public safety concern, to look at having the legislature come in and send a clear voice and a clear message to Floridians and to the world.
Senator Watt, you're saying you don't want to repeal the law. If you do make the presumptions rebuttable, if you do undermine that, if they do have to go to the grand jury, isn't that effectively neutering the law?
Well, it's not repealing the law, and I wouldn't think it's neutering the law. You will still have the law, and you still have the ability to stand your ground. But in the case, as you see in the discussions, in cases when there's ambiguity and police officers don't know, well, do I arrest somebody? Do I detain someone in order to do my investigation? Under the law, the letter of the law, that's ambiguity. And so when you take out the detention part of the law, that gives officers a clear message that, okay, if I'm at a bar fight and someone shoots and kills someone and say stand your ground, I can, the legislature's made this change, I can detain this person and then do a real investigation. You still keep stand your ground, and you still have that as an affirmative defense per se. But I think we need to send a clear message to law enforcement as well as citizens on how we should act in this state.
Who turned you down to appear before the task force tomorrow?
All right, Lieutenant Governor Carroll. I sent a letter, and her reasoning was that tomorrow, I guess they need 4 hours for an organizational meeting, and that they don't have the public speaking tomorrow. And as a member of the Senate, she didn't want to open it up to me because then the public would want to speak.
You said that there's confusion or ambiguity about the detention part of the law. I don't think that the crafters of the law would say that. I think what they say is that you're not allowed to detain someone at all. So isn't that something new?
Well, one of the recommendations is to take that out, because under the law it says arrest meaning detain,
right.
And that makes it hard for investigation. The two police officers on the task force really talked about that aspect of it, that in order for them to investigate, when the letter of the law says you can't even detain someone to do a full investigation, that was one of the strong points they had. And so however the crafters meant it, they're looking at the letter of the law, and that's why it was good that we had 18 lawyers, 18 legal minds, 18 people who deal with the law each and every day in the courthouse, actually take a look at it and discuss how it's being used every day.
The reason I'm asking about the crafters is because you were there at the time. One of the arguments is they didn't want people who used this law to have to lawyer up in order to defend themselves when they were defending themselves.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about a lot of times, times that we talk about when there's a life taken in stand your ground, but stand your ground is being used throughout the legal system. The least you should have to do is be detained so you can have an investigation. That if you take a life, the least you should have to do is explain what happened fully and let police investigate the situation. And then you don't have situations like, say, the Sanford police not understanding or not being sure of what do we do? Do we arrest? Do we not? Because of the way that this law is written. And that's what we mean by ambiguity and a little bit of the absurdity of this law. That if you're standing there and someone's dead, to have police have to wonder, can I detain this person, is a concern.